Welcome, everybody, to the Saturday edition of the Huddle Hub podcast. My name is Metal Mike, and today we're going to talk about all the news coming out of the world of football, and we are also going to talk about day 2 of the NFL Combine. Before we get into it, please make sure to head over to the Huddle Hub podcast over on social media, on X, TikTok, and now on Instagram at the Huddle Hub Pod. You're going to hit that follow button. Over on the YouTube, you're going to hit that subscribe button. That's how you follow. And if you are watching on Twitch, then you can hit that follow button, and all of our social media outlets are on there. The links are there. Click on it, go to the one you desire, and please help us build the Huddle Hub podcast going through the rest of the NFL and college football offseason and beyond. So it is the Saturday edition of the Huddle Hub podcast. We are coming up on a very big point in the NFL offseason. Okay, the NFL Combine is underway. On Thursday, Thursday was day 1. Yesterday, day 2, tight ends, D-backs. Today, we are getting the quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs. Starting at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is when the doors open to Lucas Oil Stadium and things get underway. And everybody talks about this is the biggest day of the Combine because it's quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, right? 3 of the most important positions in football. But you got to think, every position is important in football. Every position. It's just that running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks are your most focused on positions. Why? Because the quarterback, obviously the leader of your offense, the leader of your team, the guy that's going to get things going to put points on the board for you. But he's backed up by his running backs and wide receivers. Okay, but who's going to be there to protect the quarterback to make sure everything is, running smoothly? Your lineman. You can even add in the tight end. And then who's going to put the ball in that quarterback's hands? None other than your defense, your defensive backs, tackles, edge rushers, linebackers. And you can't forget about the kickers. You can't forget about the kickers. Okay, now not many kickers are at the Combine. There's a few. And as we know, a few kickers do enter the NFL draft. And then you have a lot of them that are undrafted free agents. There's a lot of just free agent kickers out there that are just waiting to get a call saying, hey, we need you. So this is step 1 of the importance of the NFL offseason, because this is going to set up what is going to come at the NFL draft. These young rookies, these guys that are going to come into the league and to be the future of the game. Okay? And then free agency, March 11th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, when everything kicks off and all the fun stuff begins. Because a lot of players that are not on a team can get picked up and go elsewhere. Some guys get re-signed. We're going to see trades. I mean, we've seen a lot. We've seen a couple things already that aren't official until March 11th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to talk about them. But there's things that are already happening. We had a trade already. Some contracts are getting restructured in places that need to restructure contracts because, let's face it, their cap space just isn't the best. But this is step 1 of the importance of the NFL offseason with the NFL Combine. So, and we're also seeing franchise tags too on players. And if you had to pick one of the most questionable things to happen for some players, it is the franchise tag. Because you go back to the 2025 season and you look at some of these players like, man, this player had a pretty good season. Why is he getting franchise tagged? And some of it makes sense. If you really think about it in hindsight, it makes sense. But at the same time, but what if year 2 with your team, with this team, or whatever year it is, becomes a remarkable season? Are you going to think about tagging the player next year? Or are you going to actually contract him? Now, I always say that contracts nowadays don't matter. I don't think they do. Why? Because we see players, coaches, everything get termed contracts 2, 3, 4 years. And sometimes at the end of year one, sometimes in the middle of year one, depending on how things are going. If the team's not happy, bye. So contracts, realistically, in my eyes, don't matter. They don't. The salary cap went up this year by a massive amount of money. And when teams have the accessibility of that money, they can make more crucial decisions a lot easier than they would have been able to even 10 years ago. You know, if they have a player at $130 million today, that contract, we'll eat it. Cap space will go up next year. We can cover it. We'll figure some stuff out with contracts, restructure things, and we'll make room. 10 years ago, it was, man, we just got to hope that this player comes back and does what we need him to do next year. Because we can't afford to just let him go. Things are different now. Now, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, Mike, do you think contracts matter? Yeah, they do. They matter. But now, no. Nope. I don't think so. Now, we're not going to cover salary cap stuff today. Me and John are going to cover that on the Tuesday edition of the Huddle Hub podcast, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on YouTube and Twitch. We're going to talk about the NFC teams when it comes to salary cap space. And then the Tuesday before, on March 10th, the Tuesday before free agency kicks off, we're going to cover all the AFC teams. Okay? So we're going to cover and talk about salary cap space. That's going to be our special segment the next 2 Tuesdays. So hopefully you come join us on the Tuesday edition as well, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as we're going to talk about salary cap space. And what's crazy is if you go back 10 years ago, you talk about salary cap space, it wasn't as exciting. Today, you talk about salary cap space, it's one of the most exciting things to talk about in the sport. Why? Because you try and figure out how much money your team has and then wonder if they can go pick up the player that you hope they go get as a fan, if they can afford it. You know, for example, we talked about Trent Williams the other night on the Tuesday episode. Trent Williams is holding a $39 million cap above him, meaning if a team wants him, they're going to have to pay. And you're probably thinking, oh, $39 million, what if a team doesn't have that? Most of the teams that are in the positive side of things, let's put it this way, most of your teams that are in the positive side of things or even negative side of things, if teams are in the negative side of things by $10 million or even $5 million, they can afford them. Why? Because obviously that contract gets separated within the years of contract. So if they sign him for 3 years, you know, and it's a $40 million contract, 20 or they'll do like 12, 12-5, 12-5, 12-5 with the addition of a bonus and the incentive and everything like that, all thrown into the contract. So it's there. It's there. One of the players I'm hoping comes to Philadelphia is David Njoku. He's going to be a free agent, tight end from the Browns. I've always been a fan of David Njoku. So I would love to see him in an Eagles uniform. I would, and that's me personally. So again, we are in the most exciting part of the NFL offseason. Step one, the NFL Combine. And then we got the NFL Draft out in Pittsburgh this year, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But free agency kicking off in 2 weeks, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, March 11th. So, let's get into the Combine stuff. Day 2 yesterday. And we got our leaders for each category that's coming out of the tight ends and defensive backs from yesterday. First off, for the 40-yard dash, Lorenzo Styles, safety of Ohio State. He had a pretty good 40 time. yesterday, a 4.27 40 time, which not bad. Not a bad 40 time at all. Statistics are on the bottom scrolling through as far as what the player did as the leader of the category. But the 40-yard dash seems to be one of the most important, if not the most important, thing to do at the draft. A lot of people focus on that 40 time. Why? Because most of the time you're running and you want to make sure that the player's fast. Now, me personally, I look to see how fast the player is, but I also look to see what their broad jump is, how high they can jump, their strength. Strength, because you got to be able to tackle if you're on defense. I mean, if I'm looking at the defensive guys, defensive backs, defensive tackles, everything like that, I mean, I'm looking at their strength. How many reps do they do on that bench press? What's their shuttle, shuttle times? That's what I'm looking at. And then the elevation, the vertical. Wide receivers and tight ends specifically. If I have a tight end who's in there that's 6'5", 230 pounds, 240 pounds, and he runs a good 40 time and jumps well, that's all I need to see. Tight ends aren't built for speed, but we do get fast tight ends. If you go back to the day of thinking about the natural tight end position, and things have changed in that position slightly. Okay. In the tight end position, you looked for size, strength, and whether the tight end can catch, right? The player can catch. Now it's height, it's strength, because tight ends are blocking more nowadays. And you're looking to see if they can catch. As far as speed, do you want a speedy tight end? You do. Because if you get a tight end that gets out in the open and catches the ball, you don't want him to get run down. You want him to go that distance and get in the end zone. But back then, tight ends were your backdoor guys that you dumped the ball off to if you were in a rough situation, got open, and he got you about 10 to 12, 15 yards. Now tight ends are running the distance of the field. You see it. So 3 of the things I look for, I look at the 40 time, I look at the vertical jump, and I look at the reps that they do in the bench press to see their strength. That is what I look at for a player in the draft. But Lorenzo Styles, he ran a 4.27 yesterday, which was one of the fastest times of the day. And we'll have to see what happens today with the quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers. Turiano Pride Jr., cornerback out of Missouri, was second on the 40-yard dash yesterday at 4.32. So that's about a 0.5 difference. And that 0.5 difference makes a difference. But nonetheless, for the split times, Lorenzo Styles Jr. also he leads the split times when it comes to defensive backs. A 1.49. Okay, Traydon Stukes, the safety out of Arizona, he ran a 1.50, and Malik Muhammad, cornerback out of Texas, ran a 1.51. So that's how close the 10-yard splits were. And you're probably asking, like, what's the 10-yard splits if you've never seen the combine before? They set up this it's pretty much 10-yard split. It's 5, 10, 15 yards, and then you start in the middle, and then you go to one side, you go around this cone, and then you run across, go around the cone again, bam. So you're literally running 10 yards around cones and back to the middle within seconds. And for these guys to be running 1.49s and 1.50s is impressive. Impressive. So Lorenzo Styles right now leading in those 2 categories. When it comes to the vertical jump and the broad, Eli Stowers, the tight end out of Vanderbilt, Okay, in the vertical, 45.50 inches. And in the broad, 11 feet 3. 11 feet in the air. 11.3 feet in the air. You look at that and think, man, this kid, he is going to be a tight end that probably goes in the first round if teams are looking for tight ends. 6'4", 239 pounds. 6'4", 239 pounds. That's a big tight end. And then you got to think about the teams that are going to be looking for it. The Kansas City Chiefs, the 49ers, a couple teams that are going to be looking for a tight end in the draft. I got to see what teams have the team need for a tight end. Because you better believe I have that prepped already. Yes, I do. Because once we get to draft talking, I want to be prepared. And I prepare myself pretty early for draft talk. I do. So the first team on the board for tight end needs is the Commanders at number 7. Okay. After that, the Chiefs at 9, the Dolphins at 11, the Bucks at 15, the Eagles at 23. And let's see if any of the teams after Philly, the 49ers, their top needs, they don't need a tight, theirs isn't a tight end. The Patriots at 31. Okay, so the Patriots, the Eagles, the Bucks, the Chiefs, the Commanders, and the Dolphins. So I guarantee that Eli Stowers is a top candidate for these teams when it comes to the draft. And tight ends normally don't go in the top 10. So you got to think the Commanders at 7. Do you think they jump and take a tight end in the first round? Probably not. They're probably going to sit there thinking he might fall to the second round. But then a team like Kansas City or Miami, depending on what happens with Dallas Goedert in Philadelphia, or if they go out and get somebody like a David Njoku. Okay? So it all depends on what these teams do in free agency before we get to the draft. But I don't see the Commanders taking him at 7. They're going to focus on other positions in need. And I think at least 2 of the positions in their need are more important. Okay, so the Commanders' top 5 team positions needed: wide receiver, tight end, edge rusher, linebacker, and cornerback. Okay, so I could see them. I don't know why my camera keeps moving, but it does. So I could see them going wide receiver. I could see them going cornerback. I could see them going edge rusher. Or, wide receiver, edge rusher before they go tight end. Linebacker, I could see them probably going before too. It all depends. Cornerback and linebackers and all depends on type of situation. But tight end, I think, is going to be their top 3 need out of the 5. It's going to be number 3. It's going to be in the middle of the pack. So, I mean, obviously we won't know till we get to the draft, but you know, the Commanders are going to be the first ones to possibly take a crack at drafting this kid. And it's going to be whether they decide to take him in the first round or not. Do I see a team like Kansas City taking him in the first round? I do. I see Kansas City being a team that says, all right, we're going to take him just in case, you know, TK doesn't want to come back. Because we're getting this close to the draft, and there's no confirmation whether Travis Kelce is coming back for another season or if he's leaving. And Kansas City, I do not think that they hesitate to draft him if they don't know. So, we'll have to see. I want to see who the other tight ends are on the Kansas City Chiefs, because I believe they have Noah Gray as well. Yeah, they do. They have Noah Gray. That's what I thought. Travis Kelce, Noah Gray, Jared Wiley, and Jake Brenningstool. Okay. That's what I thought. I thought they had Noah Gray. So yeah, Eli still leads in the vertical and broad in the 3-cone. Denied Dennis Sutton, the edge rusher out of Penn State. He leads in the 3-cone at a 6.90 seconds. I mean, this kid is quick. I mean, I'm a Penn State fan. I've watched a few Penn State games this year. I was able to watch a few Penn State games this year. And he's quick, very agile on his feet. He is going to be a top edge rusher coming out of the draft. I mean, when you look at the top, even in the top 10, when it comes to teams that are in need of an edge rusher, okay, and these are just the teams in the top 10 that are have an edge rusher on their list for top needs. The Raiders at number 1, the Cardinals at number 3, the Titans at 4, the Commanders at 7, the Saints at 8, and the Bengals at 10. Okay, now we all have the speculation that Fernando Mendoza is going at 1 to the Raiders. Okay, so that would take the Raiders off that list. Then you got the Cardinals. And do I think Denied Dennis Sutton goes to the Cardinals? I don't. I mean, that's the thing, is I don't see this kid falling past 10. That's how good of an edge rusher he is. Don't see him falling past 10. But there are other really good edge rushers out there. But Denied Dennis Sutton is a top edge rusher coming out of college football. Again, there are more top guys. But if edge rushers are one of the more important drafted positions this year, even in the first round, if he's the 5th edge rusher off the board, he's still being taken in the first round. It just all determines on how other teams, they fall. And as you do these drills, your stock goes up more. Okay. So when you look at the edge rushers, when you look at the edge rushers, 40-yard dash, Denied Dennis Sutton is 6th on the list. Okay. So you have Arvell Reese, who was the fastest edge rusher at 4.46, David Bailey 4.50, Malachi Lawrence at 4.52, Trey Moore at 4.54, and then Cassius Howell ran a 4.59. Denied Dennis Sutton 4.63. Okay, the 10-yard splits. He's pretty far down on the list. I think he's like 10th on the list. So again, if edge rushers are a more important thing, then do I see him, still getting taken in the first round? I do. Are there going to be edge rushers that go before him? Yes. Like a Cassius Howell, and Arvell Reese, Malachi Lawrence, a Trey Moore. I do see those guys possibly going before. So do I see Denied Dennis Sutton going to even a top 10 team? It all depends on how teams feel. It does. You can argue for a lot of these edge rushers. You can. So we'll have to see. All right, we were on the 3-cone at the shuttle. Latrell McCutcheon Sr., cornerback out of Houston, ran a 4.18 second shuttle. Pretty quick on this drill. Again, there's going to be a lot more. A lot of this is going to change today when the running backs and the wide receivers and the quarterbacks get on the field. Specifically, wide receivers and running backs are probably going to take over some of these categories. But these are the leaders of this position. Okay. Now, this is between what happened yesterday between the defensive backs and the tight ends. So, things are going to change. So, for example, if we look at, we put down, this is all position. Right now, these are the guys that are leading after day 2. So that's that. And then last but not least, the bench press, David Gusta, defensive tackle out of Kentucky, 37 reps. Okay, behind him was Gabe Jackas out of Illinois, the edge rusher. Dominic Williams, the defensive tackle out of Oklahoma, had 30 reps. Matthew Hibner, tight end out of SMU, 28 reps, along with Tyreek Sapp out of Florida, the edge rusher. Skylar Gill Howard, 27 reps, along with Josiah Trotter. Kenyon Sadiq had 26, tight end out of Oregon. So, I mean, the guy with the less reps was Bishop Fitzgerald, the safety out of USC. And again, that doesn't surprise me because defensive backs, they are strong. But I don't want to say, I really don't want to say that because defensive backs, I mean, let's see who the top defensive back was when it came to reps at the bench press. Let's see who it was. Okay. As far as cornerbacks, Chris Johnson, the cornerback out of San Diego State, 17 reps. Let's go to safeties. Dylan Thieneman, safety out of Oregon, had 18 reps. Okay. So those are your defensive back leaders. But David Gusta, 37 reps. I mean, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. You can keep going. Keep going. Get those reps up. Get your stock up, and you're good to go. So, but that's it for the tight ends, defensive backs coming out of the NFL Combine. We'll probably talk about the rest of the Combine scores on the Tuesday episode of the Huddle Hub Podcast, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Twitch and YouTube. I'm going to take 30 seconds here, and we'll be back and talk about the news after this. All right, so make sure you're following the Huddle Hub Podcast on social media, on X, TikTok, and now on Instagram at the Huddle Hub Pod. You're going to hit that follow button. Over on the YouTube, you're going to hit the subscribe button. That's how you follow on the YouTube, and follow us here on Twitch as well. All of the links to all of our social medias are in the bio of the Twitch channel, so you click on the link, and it will take you to whatever social media you desire to follow us on, because I know not everybody uses every social media, and help us build the Huddle Hub Podcast going through the rest of the NFL and college football offseason and beyond. Okay. So we're going to get into the news of things here in a moment. Longer commercial break than normal because we started at a pretty crucial time. It's early in the morning, and news kind of starts to come out in these early mornings, especially now it's past 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The doors are opening at Lucas Oil Stadium for the quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs at the NFL Combine. So you start to kind of scroll around the internet to see if anything has come out this early in the morning. A couple things in the news came out, so I was able to grab at least one thing one headline that I was able to see during the commercial break that we're going to talk about here in a few moments. But yeah, I mean, now's the time where a lot of rumors are going to start flying around about players, trades, players that aren't going to get franchise tagged, that are going to move on from the team they're at. They're going to seek free agency. They're going to seek trades and all that stuff because the team isn't committed to the player anymore, doesn't want to sign him. But that player obviously still wants to play, and they feel like they could be a crucial part of a team, and that's what they're going to do. And that's the exciting part about this. So, I mean, you think the NFL season alone is exciting? Pay attention to the stuff that happens in the offseason. It's exciting. Very exciting. I wish I was at the NFL Combine today. I wish I was sitting there as, we are building the Huddle Hub podcast here. I mean, we're still, in our growing stages here, all over social media, trying to get our names out there, but it would have been awesome to be a part of the NFL Combine as part of the media, outlet and all that stuff. One day. We'll be there one day. I know we will. So, but it would have been fun to be there and be firsthand, sit there and hear, hey, this is what's, some of the rumors that are going on and blah, blah, blah. Now, would I open my mouth about them? No, because I mean, maybe. I mean, because other outlets do it, other media outlets do it. Hey, there's rumors about this, rumors about that. Not fully 100% sure what is actually coming of the situation, all that stuff. Yeah, I'm going to say stuff like that, because media doesn't know the for sure thing until it actually happens, So, but let's get into it. First off, the Minnesota Vikings have mentioned that they are exploring all options at quarterback. Now, we've talked about this probably for the past year now, probably since kickoff of the 2025 season. Okay. Because J.J. McCarthy, his first two seasons, dealt with injuries. Even though we've seen him on the field this year, he was dealing with injuries. And when a player comes out of the draft and was a top draft pick, and number one gets injured in preseason of your first year, you expected him to be your guy, and you had to move forward with the guy that was your backup, Sam Darnold in Minnesota in 2024. Had a spectacular season. He was able to earn himself a contract out in Seattle, thus hoisting the Lombardi Trophy in the 2025 season. Crazy, right? Great route for Sam Darnold. He's had a crazy career since 2018, and now here he is hoisting the Lombardi Trophy, right? Okay. But Minnesota, they go out and get J.J. McCarthy. Sam Darnold walks. And, now they're relying on on J.J. McCarthy. But he's still dealing with the injuries. So I don't blame Minnesota for saying, look, we really got to concentrate on this quarterback position. We can't trust that J.J. McCarthy is going to come in here and be our guy moving forward because we've dealt with nothing but injuries with him. So do you blame them for putting the quarterback position in a very important area of their seeking when it comes to positions? You look at their draft needs, okay? Wide receiver, offensive lineman, linebacker, cornerback, safety. Nowhere does that say quarterback. But then to come out and mention the other day, the quarterback position, we are exploring all options right now. Do you blame them? Because I don't. Especially with what's going on with J.J. McCarthy. Now, whether they look at the free agent list and say, we're going to sign this guy or that guy, you look at that free agent list and some quarterbacks that could come in and be the starter, Daniel Jones, Aaron Rodgers, possibly Russell Wilson, possibly this might be a stretch, but Joe Flacco. But out in Indianapolis, Anthony Richardson requested to be able to seek trade. I'm going to say this right now. I think Minnesota trades for Anthony Richardson from Indianapolis. I do. And there is proof out there that Kevin O'Connell and Anthony Richardson have a relationship. And Kevin O'Connell believes in Anthony Richardson. So I could see Kevin O'Connell going to the front office and saying, look, let's bring him in. Because I think we can turn things around for him. We believe in him. And it's understandable that JJ has been questionable since we got him. He's been injured. Anthony Richardson just got benched in Indy. That's it. Just got benched. So let's try and turn things around for this kid. Let's see if we can help him. Now, there's been a lot of predictions out there about where Anthony Richardson gets traded to since this news came out. And not one person has said the Minnesota Vikings. Well, I'm saying it right now. I think Anthony Richardson gets traded to the Minnesota Vikings. That's my thought. I think he gets traded to the Minnesota Vikings. And it wouldn't surprise me if he was their day one starter. It would not surprise me with J.J. McCarthy being in question that Anthony Richardson goes in, gets motivated, has a great camp, a great preseason, and becomes their starter. A lot of people have written off J.J. McCarthy. A lot of people have written off Anthony Richardson. But as I always say, sometimes players just do not fit in the system they get drafted to or signed to originally. Sometimes it takes players 3 or 4 teams to get it right. Sam Darnold, perfect example. Sometimes it takes that. So there's a chance Minnesota might be the only team that has not written him off yet. And I think Minnesota is the team that comes in and trades for Anthony Richardson. Maybe even as soon as March 11th, right at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that's my thought. I think Anthony Richardson, he ends up in Minnesota. I do. I think he does. So Brandon Aubrey, kicker of the Cowboys, him and his agent. And the Cowboys. Let me start this one over. Brandon Aubrey, kicker of the Cowboys, him and his agent, and even the Cowboys agree that he should be one of the highest paid at his position. Now, Brandon Aubrey was arguably one of the best kickers in 2025, if not the best kicker. I mean, I haven't been able to look at all the statistics when it came to kickers in 2025, but Brandon Aubrey is a heck of a kicker. So does he deserve to be one of those top paid kickers? Kickers, I mean, you don't really see big contracts go to kickers. You don't. But some kickers, depending on how long they stay in the league, they can rack up contracts. They can rack up the money they make. I mean, yeah, we're not in the day and age where a kicker is with a team for long term, but they're there long enough. And then sometimes we see kickers float around the league and still get good contracts. But Brandon Aubrey, he's been in Dallas for a little bit. He feels that he deserves to be one of the top paid kickers. I mean, again, arguably being one of the best kickers. I mean, let's see if we can bring up kicker statistics in 2025. Okay. We'll look at field goal stats here. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so Brandon Aubrey, 36 made out of 42. That's not bad. That's 85.7% of his field goals made. His longest was from 64 yards out. That is the second longest. Actually, third longest. Cam Little, the kicker from Jacksonville, he kicked a 68-yarder. Chase McLaughlin, the kicker out of Tampa Bay, kicked a 65-yarder, and then Brandon Aubrey, a 64-yarder. But Chase McLaughlin, he missed 6 field goals in 2025. Cam Little missed 4. Brandon Aubrey missed 6. So Brandon Aubrey could be one of the top, if not the top paid kicker in the league. Could be. You know, I mean, he's been in the league for 3 years, been in Dallas for a little bit. And we know this, that teams, again, switch kickers. They do. And he may be one of the longest tenured kickers for a team. Jake Elliott's been in Philly since 2017, 2018. Philly plans on keeping him around for this season. So that's a long tenure right there. Hasn't left and come back or anything. He's been there consistently since 2018. So could Brandon Aubrey be one of the top paid kickers? I think so. I think so. And if Dallas is able to pull the money out and pay him, pay him. Contract him. Again, we're in the day and age where kickers don't stick around for long. I mean, they go out and miss 3 field goals after being with the team for 5 years, can go out in a game, miss 3 field goals, and be released the next day. That's how things go sometimes. It happens, which is crazy. But then you do have teams who are committed to kickers. Oh, you just had a bad day. Let's clean it up and get it back to normal next week, or get it back on track next week. That's some teams' mindsets too. But other teams' mindsets is, you've been with us for 5 years. You just had the worst game of your career. See ya. Don't let them clean it up? Why? Why? And I don't think there's many kickers out there in the free agent market. I don't believe. I don't believe the free agent market for kickers is a big list. We are looking. Specifically kickers. Yeah, it's not a big list. Not a big list at all. 15 kickers. 15 kickers on the free agent list right now. And that's not counting the guys that are going to be free agents come March 11th. It's insane. And there's some pretty decent kickers on this list too. Eddie Pinheiro out of San Francisco. I think San Francisco locks him up. I do. He did pretty good for San Francisco this year. So he's one that I don't see being on this free agent list long. Matt Prater came into Buffalo after their kicker went down. Had a fabulous season. One of the best kickers, a top 5 kicker this year. I had him on my fantasy league for most of the year. Picked him up in week 2 or week 3. Carried him almost toward the end of the season. Until Buffalo went on their bye week. Then I had to pick somebody else up. Jake Bates. Jake Moody. He's had a rough go. But he could probably get back on track. But I'm just saying, kickers, people say kickers are a dime a dozen. They're not a dime a dozen. They're just, one of the most expendable teams or expendable positions in the league, because you go out and get a kicker, at any minute, because you only need one. It's not like you need 5 in the room. Kicker, punter, long snapper. That's it. That's what's in your special teams room, and probably your returners, your punt and kick returners. That's who's in your special team room. The Jacksonville Jaguars have announced that they will play 2 games in London this year. Now, it's normal that we usually see Jacksonville in London. So they announced that they are going to be playing 2 games in London this season. The Commanders are going to play in London as well. So we're probably going to see the Commanders and Jaguars play each other in London, because it seems like that's how it's matching up. But it can also be a situation where the Jaguars play in London one week against one team, and then the next week play, and then the Commanders come in and play somebody else. That's how they can have it lined up, because we know we are getting more international games moving forward. Okay, so if Jacksonville plays Washington, which has not been announced yet, who knows? But it can also be separate opponents. They may not be playing each other. So, but both teams have announced that they will be playing in London. Jacksonville will play 2 games in London. Last season, we've seen them play in London twice in a row. They just stayed in London and played a second game, which is smart. You don't want to travel to London, come back, play a game, and then go back in a week or two, have to do all that travel. No, play 2 games in a row. Play 2 games in a row. Don't do that to yourself, And that was the smart thing about Jacksonville doing that, was sticking around in London, after a game and playing the next one there as well, since they said they were playing 2 games. So, but Jacksonville, Washington will play in London this year. Andy Dalton, quarterback of the Panthers. Now, he is a backup quarterback in Carolina. As we know, Bryce Young is the starting quarterback out in Carolina. Teams have been calling for a potential trade for Andy Dalton. Now, Andy Dalton, he hasn't been a starter in the league in quite some time now. He's been playing in the backup role for the past couple of years. But, teams are still looking for a reliable backup quarterback. Why? Because if their starting quarterback goes down, you want to make sure you have that reliable backup. Now, we've seen some teams have trouble with that situation to where they had to go out and pick up a guy who's been sitting on his couch since the end of training camp. It seems like teams are now looking to start to make sure they have a reliable backup quarterback so they don't have to be in that situation. And Joe Flacco has probably been the most beneficial guy out of this type of situation in the past 2 or 3 seasons. 2 years ago, Cleveland, they went through, 5 quarterbacks, 6 quarterbacks to get to the playoffs. Right? And then he comes back this past season and ends up in Cleveland, gets traded to Cincinnati. So, Joe Flacco, he's probably been the most beneficial. He's probably benefited the most out of being in the backup quarterback role. Now, Andy Dalton, he's been in the league again for quite some time, but he still wants to play football. And if he still feels like he could play football, then so be it. And you know what? I'd sit here and say, if I was any team, I'd be trying to get Andy Dalton. Because that shows that he's still motivated and he still wants to help a team win. Whether it's in the backup role, whether it's in the starting role, he wants to be there for that team. So if I was any team in this league seeking a reliable backup quarterback, which is pretty much all 32 teams, but any team that really, really is seeking a backup quarterback, go out and get Andy Dalton. Because if your starter goes down, you know that you're going to have a motivated, reliable backup quarterback out there, and he's going to go out there and try and win you some games to keep you on track for the playoff race. So if I was any team, go out and get Andy Dalton on your roster. That's all I got to say. Tremaine Edmonds, linebacker of the Bears, he was also granted by the Bears to seek trade as well. So again, a lot of teams, they're out there looking for linebackers pretty much all the time, and you're trying to fill your linebacker room and trying to have a successful linebacker room. Why? Because, you have your edge rushers, defense tackles who are on the front line of your defense. You want to make sure you have a good second level because, again, the running back position was one of the most important positions 2 seasons ago. And then this past season, the tight end position kind of started to creep up a little bit. Okay, now running backs, they get past that first level. You want to try and make sure you have the linebackers there to stop them from getting any further than 7 yards. So you want to try and have one of those really good linebacker rooms, right? And that just goes with the tight ends too, because tight ends, most of the routes you see them run are in the middle of the field. So you want to try and have a linebacker who's going to be able to stick with that tight end through routes. Now, Tremaine Edmonds, he's a pretty good linebacker. Depending on where he goes, that team is going to get a good linebacker. So Tremaine Edmonds seeking a trade, and we'll see who ends up trading for Tremaine Edmonds if that happens. Sean Payton, head coach of the Broncos. He is a member of the NFL competition committee. He said that most replay errors occurred during the 1 p.m. games this year in 2025. Okay. So meaning a lot of the replay errors, errors that happen during, when they throw the challenge flag out, anything like that, or if they look up at the big screen, because this year, officials were able to determine plays by just looking up at the big screen in the stadium. They didn't have to go over to the booth. Nobody had to throw a challenge flag. If a player said, hey, look up at the big screen, watch it right there, you'll be able to see it better. They look up. Sorry, not seeing anything. Then the player has to go over to coach and say, throw the challenge flag so we can get a better look in the booth. So, but most of these mistakes were made in the 1 p.m. games. And we've had a lot of big matchups in the 1 p.m. sets. Now, normally, for example, Fox, America's Game of the Week happens at 4 p.m., right? CBS, a lot of your bigger games happened at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, kickoff. But you did at times get those bigger games in the 4 p.m. slot. So I could see the statistic being highly correct to the fact that you had a lot of big games this past season in the 1 p.m. slot, and that the replays, a lot of the mistakes that were made on replays happened in that area. So a trade that happened yesterday, the Jets and Titans. The Titans ended up trading for defensive end Jermaine Johnson from the Jets, and in return, the Jets received T'Vondre Sweat, defensive tackle of the Titans. Now, this being the first unofficial trade of the NFL offseason. Why I say unofficial is because, again, the free agent and trade does not open up until March 11th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So this trade is not fully official until 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on March 11th, but this trade is happening. And Jermaine Johnson, defensive end of the Jets, will head to Tennessee, and T'Vondre Sweat, defensive tackle of the Titans, will head to New York to the Jets. So Gerard Johnson, quarterback coach of the Texans, has parted ways with the team. Now, Gerard Johnson being the quarterback coach in Houston, we've seen CJ Stroud, he struggled a little bit this year. For them to bring in a new quarterback coach, and maybe that could freshen things up for CJ Stroud a little bit. I mean, CJ Stroud had a heck of a rookie year. And then after that, the past 2 seasons hasn't been the best for him. So for the Texans, to bring in a new quarterback coach might freshen things up a little bit for CJ. And we'll have to see what quarterback coach comes in, what coach comes in to be the quarterback coach for the Houston Texans. But Gerard Johnson has parted ways with the team. The NFLPA report cards for each team has been released. Now, there's been a lot of talk about these report cards not being released. Okay, there's a lot going on as far as, there's not a lot going on now because it has been decided that the report cards can remain to be released, but there's been a lot of talk about them not being released in the future. But the NFLPA is allowed to release these report cards. I'm sure there's going to be more talk about, them not being able to release the report cards. Obviously, they won the battle to be able to release them, but I don't see whoever's fighting them from doing it, them backing down. I don't see them backing down. I see this being an argument in the future. But, the NFLPA has released the report cards for each team for the 2025 season, and you go check those out. Those are public information. Just go and Google NFLPA or NFLPA report cards, and all of it is out there. All that information is out there. Sam Franklin, safety of the Bills, has signed a 3-year, $7.5 million extension with the Bills. So he is going to stick around in Buffalo. Maxx Crosby, defensive end of the Raiders. A lot of trade rumors coming out about Maxx Crosby these past couple weeks. What teams can go and try and trade for him, what teams would have to give up to trade for him. And believe me, I think there are some teams out there that would give up a lot to get Maxx Crosby because he is a very effective player, obviously, right? But one of the top teams that's being rumored that I'm hearing about is Tampa Bay. And could you see Maxx Crosby going to Tampa Bay? Probably. You could see him going to any team. I'm going to start this one over. Maxx Crosby, defensive end of the Raiders. The trade rumors have been very big for him. Okay. Now, a lot of talk about what team he can go to, what team he could be traded to. Obviously, he's going to fit in any roster because he is an impactful player. Okay. Some teams are being noted as the top trade places for him, but there's also a lot of talk coming out of Vegas that they are hoping to keep him around. So we're going to have to keep an eye on whether Max Crosby ends up getting traded in this offseason or if he ends up sticking around in Vegas, because Vegas is making that push of saying, we want him here. We want to keep him here, and we're going to do what we need to do to keep him in a Vegas uniform. So we'll have to see if Max Crosby ends up anywhere else once free agency starts, or if he sticks around in Vegas. Last bit of news. Dak Prescott, quarterback, CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver, and Tyler Smith, offensive guard of the Cowboys. They're going to be restructuring their contracts, which will open up $66 million in cap room. Now, if you look at the Dallas Cowboys cap space right now, it is in the negative. Over negative $60 million. Okay? Now, if I'm correct on this, don't quote me on this at all. I believe I'm correct on how this is going to work, is Dallas, they're in the negative by like $65 million right now. Okay. Now, with them restructuring these contracts, opens up 66, which puts them in the positive side of things. Okay. Which should put them in the positive side of things. Now, Kenny Clark, Quinn Williams, and Osa Odigizua, all defensive tackles, they are going to be reworking their contracts, which they are scheduled to work against the cap by $63 million. So they're also going to be reworking their contracts to hopefully put the Cowboys in more of a positive for cap space. Now, there's a lot of talk about Dallas saying, like, we plan on spending big in free agency. How are you going to do that being in the negative? Well, because when it comes to that money, again, contracts, how they work, you pay a player, say you pay a player $40 million for 2 years. It's going to be $20 million 1 year, $20 million the next, and then add in the bonuses. That's how it's done. They don't just make all that money in one sitting. It is split between years. Because if let's say a player's on their last year of their contract and the team wants to trade them away, well, money's involved in that. And if they give the player the whole lump sum, the money's not there, so they break it up in bits and pieces. So, but Dallas is making some moves when it comes to contracts with Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Tyler Smith, Kenny Clark, Quinn Williams, and Osa Odigizua to try and open up some cap space before free agency opens on March 11th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, but that's all I got for the news, guys, and that means that's all I got for you, okay? Me and John will be live again on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Tuesday edition of the Huddle Podcast, as we are going to talk about all the NFC teams and their open cap space and what they could possibly do in free agency, okay? So that's what we have planned. Also, all the news that comes out between now and Tuesday, we will be talking about on the Tuesday edition of the Huddle Podcast. Please make sure you're following us on all social medias, on X, TikTok, and now Instagram at the Huddle Pod. On YouTube at the Huddle Pod, you're going to hit that subscribe button. That's how you follow. And make sure you're following on the Twitch channel. All the links to all of our social medias are in the bio. You can just click on the one you desire and help us build the Huddle Podcast going through the rest of the NFL and college football all season and beyond. You can follow me on social media, Instagram, X, TikTok, Snapchat, MetalMike714. That's where you can find me. I do Fortnite streams on TikTok once in a while. I stream my quarterback superstar here on the Huddle Hub Podcast. If you've been following that series, if not, go over to the YouTube channel. You can follow my Road to Glory. I posted my rookie year from my Madden quarterback superstar. You could check that out as well. But yeah, do some fun streams here. Me and John also stream. We're almost done with our 10th year in our college football dynasty. Okay, we wrapped up year 9 a couple days ago. We've been running through our year 10. So keep a lookout. We should be doing another all-season stream very soon here on the Huddle Podcast. But thank you for joining me today. Appreciate it. As I always say, be good to each other, be kind to each other, take care of each other, be patient with each other. Remember, the world is not moving as fast as you think. We'll see you guys on the Tuesday edition of the Huddle Hub Podcast. Until then, guys, have a great weekend. Deuces.